Hey folks, this is the Nostalgia Tag, created by my buddy Nick the Last Shoegazer. So we're going to be talking about all the things I used to watch when I was a kid and up to my teenage years. And this is going to be real fun, just talking about a lot of the old classics I love and still do to this day. And some people might think of things as dated, but not me. I still watch all this stuff to this day, and I love them, and it just never gets old for me. I'm a child of the 80s, and to me the 80s was like the greatest time ever, you know? So we're going to start with the first movie I've ever seen, and that is E.T. That's the first movie I ever saw in theaters, anyway. I'm sure I've seen movies before that, but the first one I actually went to the movie theater to see. And it's just an amazing classic to this day. It just tugs at the heartstrings, and I remember it being such a great experience in the movie theaters. And the next experience I had was actually Rocky 3, but I don't have Rocky 3, so I thought I'd show this. This is actually the original Rocky, which is easily the best one, and one of the greatest films of all time, in my opinion. Sylvester Stallone's performance is just brilliant, and everyone in the movie is brilliant, and it's just an amazing movie. But Rocky 3 was the second movie I saw in the theaters, and that's the one with Mr. T as Clubber Lang, you know. Had even Hulk Hogan was in there. It was a fun movie. It was a little more campy and cheesy, but certainly the original Rocky is not cheesy. And of course you gotta mention Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I absolutely love this movie. I still love it to this day. It's such a classic. It's so colorful and creative and so much fun, and I was really drawn to this film being creative and artistic as a child, and I was very into art and drawing and painting and stuff, and so I was really drawn to the creativity of this film, and of course the brilliant performance by Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka was unmatched. And early on, my father got me into science fiction. He was very much so into technological things and science, and of course science fiction in films. And television, of course. And of course, one of his favorites was Star Trek, the original series. And I absolutely was hooked from the moment I first saw Star Trek, the original series. And I just wanted to be taken away into another galaxy and escape on the Starship Enterprise with Captain Kirk and Spock and the entire crew of the Enterprise. And still to this day, I absolutely freaking love Star Trek, the original series, and some of the subsequent films, like obviously Wrath of Khan is amazing, is easily the best Star Trek film in my opinion. And, of course, you had The Voyage Home, which was a great return to form after 3 was kind of mediocre. And of course, another thing my father got me into, which I'm so happy about, is comic books. He always used to buy me a comic book. Now, I didn't see my father that much. I only saw him like once a month is when he would come and visit, because my mother and father were actually divorced really early on. I was only 1 year old when they were divorced. So, but whenever he came to visit me, he would always buy me a comic book. And that's when I got hooked, and I got hooked on the stories of Spider-Man and Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and all that stuff. And then, of course, I saw the movie Superman, starring Christopher Reeve, and of course the late Margot Kidder. Rest in peace to both them. And of course, those movies are just absolutely amazing. You really believe the man could fly. So many people have said that. And still to this day, I think nobody has played the character of Superman better than Christopher Reeve. Yeah, maybe some of the effects are certainly dated in the original Superman films, but I still really enjoy them, and I absolutely love the performances of Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman. So from there, early on, I have to say, I also was into Star Wars. I gotta mention that, of course, the original trilogy. And that was actually the third film that I saw in theaters was Return of the Jedi. And I was just so amazed and blown away, and I went on opening night, which was probably a big mistake because the line was around the building outside about 3 or 4 times. It was like a 3-hour wait to get in there. It was ridiculous. But I got in there, and I was blown away and taken off into a galaxy far, far away. So really early on, I gotta say, I got into horror at a really young age when I watched a lot of things and I probably wasn't supposed to, you know. I kind of just snuck in when my brothers would watch it. But I have to mention these films. I'm not going to mention a lot of horror. I'm just going to mention these pivotal films that started me on my horror madness. And the first one that I can ever remember seeing was Friday the 13th Part 2. And I was absolutely terrified and scared to death, but at the same time I was very intrigued. And then I moved on to the immortal, the classic, the brilliant Halloween. And then from there on I was absolutely hooked on horror forever. And then the next one that I absolutely fell in love with, that me and my buddy used to watch all the time, is this bad boy right here, Fright Night. Fright Night! Just an amazing, amazing film. I still love it to this day. It's just so much fun. It's so 80s, and it's just a rockin' good time. And another thing I got into with my brothers are all older than me, so they watched a lot of adult type stuff, you know. They were all like 5-10 years older than me, so that's how I got to watch a lot of stuff that was probably beyond my years. And the thing I really got into was so much fun is James Bond. I absolutely love James Bond. And I just thought it was so much fun, so adventurous, and I just wanted to follow James Bond on all his missions, and I wanted to be a spy when I was a kid. I used to play with my fake guns and think I was on a mission like 007. And rest in peace, Roger Moore. He was actually my favorite James Bond. He's the one I grew up watching, and still my favorite to this day. Of course, I do love Sean Connery as well. And certainly enjoy classics like Goldfinger. And, of course, Dr. No, which was the first James Bond film. Amazing film. And then from there on, I moved on to the hardcore action movies. And I got some great ones to show you. I mentioned this one on my So Bad It's Good list, Commando. But I watched a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone action films. Boy, did I watch them over and over again. And never get tired of them. But here's some other action classics that I loved in the 80s. Of course, Dirty Harry. It doesn't get any better than that. I just always thought he was so freaking cool and such a badass, and I wanted to be a cop just like him and just tear shit up. And another classic that I loved when I first saw it, I knew it was amazing, and that is Escape from New York, an early introduction to John Carpenter for me. I love this film, and I think Snake Plissken is such an awesome character. I just wish they made some worthy sequels to the film, unlike Escape from L.A. And I just watched a lot of action movies like The Road Warrior, of course. What a classic. I love Mad Max. So great. And of course, this is right here is my favorite action film of all time, and that is First Blood. The introduction to Rambo. And this is by far my favorite in the series. And I just love it. It's raw and gritty. It's realistic. It's not like those silly sequels, you know. This was Stallone at his most badass, and he had a great performance in it. And of course you had RoboCop. I love RoboCop, especially as a kid. And I still think this movie is freaking awesome. It holds up pretty damn well to this day. And maybe a couple dated scenes, but overall I think it holds up pretty damn well. And of course the Terminator, you know. I love the Terminator. And I'm going to mention a couple old classics. I always liked old classics and old TV shows. So I want you to know, that guys, that I am actually a little bit of a romantic at times. So you might not have known that about me. I am actually married. I've been happily married for 11 years now to a fantastic woman who is very romantic. So I think that side of me kind of did connect with her on that level. So I'm going to mention my two favorite romantic films ever. And that is The Quiet Man, starring John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. And of course, Breakfast at Tiffany's, starring Audrey Hepburn and George Papard. I could watch these movies forever. I still love them to this day. Very, very romantic and very fun. And just great. Of course, The Quiet Man is based in Ireland, and I have a lot of family in Ireland. My mother's from Ireland. So I think this is just a fantastic Irish film. And another thing I absolutely have to mention from when I was a kid is professional wrestling. I was a huge wrestling fan as a kid. I cannot ever remember not watching wrestling. And that is all my favorite legendary characters like Hulk Hogan, the Macho Man Randy Savage, yeah. The Stinger, baby, that's right. I used to watch WCW back in the 80s even, way before the Monday Night Wars, when Sting was the man and Ric Flair was the man. And you had tag teams like the Road Warriors and stuff like that. And there's another one from WCW. This is from the Monday Night War era. Of course, you had NWO, and yeah, we're getting into the 90s there, but WCW certainly was around way before the Monday Night War era. So now I'm going to mention a few old classic TV series that I used to love, and that is Little House on the Prairie. How about that? Come on, guys, tell me you don't love Little House on the Prairie. It's such a great, wholesome, good family entertainment, and it teaches such great values, I think. And it taught me a lot of things, you know. Charles Ingalls is such a great father figure, and he was a great father figure to me, because I followed this show for many, many years. The stories of Laura Ingalls Wilder is just amazing, and I just absolutely love the show. It's so great. And another one I have to mention is The Honeymooners. I mentioned this in one of my recent tags, I believe. And I think this show is absolutely timeless, and it is absolutely hysterical to this day. Everyone in my entire family loved this show, and still do. And I was certainly one of them, right from a very early age. When I was just a little kid, I just found it hilarious. And I still do. I was watched it recently, and I laughed my ass off. I think this show is so brilliant. So I gotta mention a few other classics. Now, I watched, like I said, I was watching stuff way more adult-oriented than I probably should have been when I was a kid. I didn't watch a lot of silly cartoons, and I mean, yeah, now and again I would watch like Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes. But I really wanted to watch like shows like The Odd Couple and All in the Family and I Dream of Jeannie and things like that. I watched all those shows, and I can never get enough of them. So I'm just going to mention a couple things from the 1990s. Now, in the 90s, I was already in like high school, but the 90s is considered nostalgia, so I'm just going to mention my two favorite TV shows from the 90s, and that is Friends, look at this. I got the entire collection on DVD, and I love it. I watch it all the time. I love Rachel and the saga of Ross and Rachel and Joey and Monica and Phoebe Buffet. I just think it's absolutely amazing series. I can never get enough of Friends. I think it's so fun, it's so funny, and it's just a great time, you know? And of course you gotta love freaking Seinfeld. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that I know that loves Seinfeld in my immediate area. Of course, it's one of the most popular TV shows in the history of television, but nobody around me loves Seinfeld. They all hate it, or they don't really care about it, but I think it's absolutely hilarious. It's definitely a situation comedy, and that's kind of the comedy that I like, you know. I love Seinfeld, so I love Friends and Seinfeld, and that's my favorite thing from the 90s. So I hope you enjoyed this nostalgia tag created by Nick the Last Shoegazer. Thanks so much, Nick, for creating this tag. It's such a fun idea and such a cool way to look back at the past and my childhood. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I really enjoyed doing it. So I'm going to leave this tag open to anyone who wants to do it, and I'd love to see your thoughts and your views, and share some of your thoughts of childhood and all the things you used to watch as a kid, and we'll just have so much fun. So thanks you guys for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, for the Nostalgia Tag.